There's no, not a soft lighting here, you know.
Yeah, but, it's because of the streaming. I hope you can get along with this.
It's okay. It's okay.
Condition. Sorry. You have the wonderful project on the front page already.
Yeah.
You're talking about more than that, or
I'm going to briefly mention some new projects I'm working with, but we're going to focus on this one.
okay? Yeah, dear guests and scholars and tutors and Robert Schmitz, we are so happy to have you here. Robert Schmitz, I will briefly introduce him. He is born in Stockholm, Sweden. He studied architecture, I guess, in Stockholm, Sweden.
In Gothenburg, yes, and in outside of Sydney in Australia.
Ah, wow. Yeah. And then he became partner among a lot of partners, but one of the good ones, as I learned before, in White Architekter. Is that right?
Yes.
And no, the spelling. I mean the spelling. Architekter, is that?
Architekter, yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And he did a wonderful project, and that is the Sara Cultural Centre Kulturhus. And he will introduce this project, among others, to us tonight. And we are very happy to have you here. And thank you very much to come. And thank you very much for a wonderful exhibition he did with his team in Berlin. I saw this exhibition. It was excellent. So I'm very, very excited to have you here. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this very kind introduction, and thank you for showing up, and all the scholars. It's a submission night, and there is so I'm very happy that you took down your pen and went to see me instead. I don't know if I could have done the same when I was a student. Yeah, so I'm going to start with this postcard from Sweden, and we're going to talk about the potential of timber and the way that we have been working with this project and other projects as well in timber at my firm. And as mentioned, I'm architect and a partner at a White Architekter, and I've been there for about 17 years. So, and we're quite a big firm, so it's been a long journey for me. But first, we have to address the problem a little bit. In Sweden, at least, we emit about 10 times more greenhouse gases than the climate can tolerate. It's about 40% of the emissions in the world origins from the building and the real estate sector, and almost twice as much if you count for all the emissions from the material produced abroad as well. So at White, or as an architect in general, we should really address that problem and trying to find solution how we can lower our environmental impact in our buildings. And you can do that in many different ways, of course. But timber we see as one direct solution, being the only renewable building material that we have today. And if it's harvested in the right way with certified forests, we can actually achieve net zero buildings doing that. And this is what I'm going to show you later on. And also, of course, 30% of all waste, and I'm talking about Sweden here, but it comes from the building sector as well, and this is general all over the world. So we also have to take care of the buildings that we have and the building stock, and to see, do we need to tear buildings down, or can we repurpose them in a way so that they can live on longer? And of course, when building new, we should do buildings that people actually want to live in for a very long time. So we also think about the next generations of people that will use these buildings. White, we're a really big firm, about 800 people, working in lots of different fields within architecture. But we're gathered under one vision, and that is for all our projects to be climate neutral by 2030 through design excellence, and therefore we're also following the Paris Agreement, reducing the environmental footprint. We have a lot of, we think in enabling sustainable life through the art of architecture, and we spans from housing, offices, hospitals, schools, urban planning, landscapes, interior design. And we also work with a lot of sustainable and digitalization experts in a holistic approach in all our project, and from the very beginning of the design process to the end of the project. Yeah, and we like to collaborate, so we have in-house all these different disciplines. We are 14 studios in 4 countries, and we just started a studio in Stuttgart, which I think is quite small studio yet, but I think we're 8 people or something, so it's but we won a big, or we commissioned a hospital in outside of Stuttgart. So I think that's our main building in Germany. We are employee owned. So when you start at White, you can buy in shares, and then we have a program that the longer you work there, the more you can buy in, and after a while hopefully you get a partner. So basically we can do whatever we want with revenue, and we like to reinvest it back into our office, basically. And we channel that through White Research Lab, we call it. And then we have different focus areas where we study mostly project-based research, but we collaborate with scientists and Swedish research institutes as well. And one of these channels are timber, and that's the background, basically, of how we investigating in the use of timber and the characteristics of the material in new projects as well. As a result, the Sara Cultural Centre is one example of that. We also have other examples. We're trying to find not only timber, but also, for example, here we have a rammed earth that we are using for stabilizing walls. And this is in a hospital we just won outside of somewhere in UK. Where it's going to be the most part is going to be timber, but also this rammed earth, which is locally produced in this region as well. And here you can see the interior of the common areas in this cancer clinic, basically. But then there is parts that is not able to work with timber, so then we have to use concrete. But then we're trying to find a typology that has the lowest impact of natural resource and the CO2 emissions. Another project that I'm working on right now was a competition win in Riga, Latvia. Here we have a combination of timber offices, a new build, and the transformation of an old brewery. This is in the city center of Riga. It's about 50,000 square meters. And here we are pushing the legislation of how tall you can build in timber for the national legislation. So we're trying to make the authorities to approve, and they already have actually, but us building 7 stories in timber with exposed timber in Latvia. And also here we have a holistic approach how not just the operational energy, but also how we're placing the volumes to make as low impact from this building as possible, or the emissions. And also how we can convert this old and save as much as possible in the old brewery as well. And here, and you can see there is the transformation here with the old and the new together to create this living hub for the residents of Riga, basically. Another project in Stockholm. This is very new. It was a competition I won 2 years ago, but this is going public next when I come back from this trip. So there will be a public hearing, and we will see how the people of Stockholm will like it. So this is how you can use timber on top. This plot is it's an existing tower from the 60s. Which has been worn down, the facades is broken, and the floor-to-floor height is very low, so it's not an efficient building. So the client decided that let's tear it down and rebuild a new one. And our proposal was why don't we use timber as a construction material instead? And the location is very central, in the absolute center of Stockholm. And here, I can try this one. I heard it was really hard to. Here is the Asplund City Library, which is very famous in Sweden at least. And it's an iconic building, so it's a very sensitive area as well to work with. But our proposal was to only tear down everything above ground. As you can see, there's a basement with it's over 5 stories down, and underneath that's the metro. So it's a very complicated situation. And by doing this in timber instead of concrete, we were able to save the basement, and therefore also save the emissions. So that would have done if you have taken that away and rebuilt it again. And also you get a new an atmosphere and then also a new vision for the entire situation at Odenplan, which this is called. And yeah, this is just a plan. I hope you can see it. It's a quite structured plan that we're working with the spans of optimizing the spans of CLT and glulam pillars in one, trying to stabilizing with only one core. And also this is a vision for how this could be visualized or realized, basically. And then we were trying to. I couldn't find a before picture, but it's we're trying to working with the old aesthetics, but with a new appearance. And this building is a little bit taller than the previous one. And hopefully it will be standing in 2028, but we'll see. It's a long process. But today's main project is Sara Kulturhus. This is opened last year, and I've been traveling the world since talking about this project, which I'm very happy and honored for. But also more, the people of Skellefteå is really proud, and they also travel around the world and talking about this. And it's 20-story, 75 meters tall, with locally sourced FCS certified mass timber building. It's a culture center and a hotel, and the thought is that they are together going to benefit from each other. And it's one of the keys for the city of Skellefteå to break a downward trend by depopulation and becoming a more attractive region, and grow from 70,000 up to 100,000 people over the next 10 years. And it already has really changed the entire city, this building. So it's really fun to be part of something that is more than just a building in the community. Skellefteå, it's about 800 kilometers right north from Stockholm. And Hamburg, maybe you can see Hamburg, yeah? Just on the south side there. You can compare it to Dawson City in Yukon. It's in Canada. It's really far up if you think of the longitudes in Sweden. It's surrounded by forests. So basically, Skellefteå is where it is because of mining and the forests. And Sweden in general, it's covered by 70% of forests, and 95% of that forest is managed forest. So we have a long tradition of working with timber and also working sustainable with timber. We are replanting every timber that we are taking down. We replant with at least 2. So there's been afforestation in Sweden over the last 100 years. There are much more timber source now than we had for 100 years ago. So up north and all around Sweden, that we have a long tradition of working with timber, and in buildings like these vernacular buildings just outside of the city center, but also smaller scale single housing up to medium high-rise buildings as well, or up to 6-7 stories. So there is a lot of knowledge and the threshold is not very high if you want to talk about timber in structures, for example. And we have a good common sense or a common thing when we're talking about timber, and then people know what it is to be in a timber building. And half of Sweden have access to this summer houses, as we call it, which is usually timber cottages in the archipelago or in the forests. So there is a sense of belonging there. And Skellefteå is also part of a wood program, or they call it an institution that calls Wood Cities, and they have this wood program, which is really basically they are the municipality, academia, and business are working together to push the use of timber in buildings. So basically what they say, if every new build project will investigate the possibilities of actually using timber in it. And then they have to argue, okay, why is this not realizable, basically. So with that in mind, we entered the open competition in 2015. It was launched by the municipality, together with Swedish architects. It didn't say anything of the use of material in the brief, but since Skellefteå is where it is, with this strong timber heritage, a strong timber industry, they had one of Sweden's first CLT sawmill, for example. And also part of the university in Luleå has its timber branch located in Skellefteå. So yeah, they know their stuff. The site, it's the last unbuilt site in Skellefteå, and it's the most central site as well. This was actually planned as a public building when the city was planned for 120 years ago or something. But nobody could, they couldn't really find a good solution, so that it ended up being a bus station instead. So the site slopes down from the train station on the low part, down towards the main square, and then down to the Skellefteå River, basically. So this gave us a really nice combination it gave us the opportunity to use a split level. So here we could use with 2 public floors with access to the surrounding streets. And basically our concept was to work with all the stages. It's a quite intense program, but we work with all the we place the scene side by side in the center of the block, and the program fills the entire block with the cultural programming around it, facing the street instead, and so that they could take part in what was going on, and then this building becomes bigger than it is, with entrances all around the block, creating no backsides. We're also working with adjusting the scale and height to its content. And connecting this building, because it's a quite big building, and it will change the scale of the CBD of Skellefteå. But we wanted to be part of the existing as well, even though the city skyline will change over time as the city will evolve. And we're also important to create new public spaces for the inhabitants of Skellefteå, so that they can explore the city in a new perspective. So basically, the Cultural Centre takes part in mending the city fabric and becomes a destination, and that runs further than the actual building. And the pink line here, following down to the Skellefteå River, is also like a culture walking path instead of cars. This is going to be like a culture Broadway, following down to the stage located in the water. And this was from our proposal. We didn't know that there already was a stage in the water, so we were quite spot on in that one. And this was our winning proposal. Side by side, it's called. And this is how it looks, a new destination. It's quite similar, basically. And lots of snow. This is a picture actually I took a couple of weeks ago when I was up there. Mending the street. And we wanted to work with the timber and the design, and we wanted to expose as much timber as possible. In the facades, but we also wanted to have the sense of for the people to see what was going on inside, and also experience the timber inside as well. So we had these big glazed windows, letting all the all the expressions inside coming out, and lure people into the building, and passers-by. So even though the people that is not interested or know about culture, we want to attract them as well. So the ground level, or the lower split level, facing the main square, you enter it underneath the high-rise, and then you come into this really big hallway, which connects all the different functions in the building. Here we wanted to put the hotel lobby and the cafe and the library, the source of all day living, or a fluctuation of people walking and crossing. So it was very important that the library took place in this corner, and it's not an enclosed library. This library is connected throughout the entire cultural center. There is no boundaries. So basically, you can borrow your book, but you can sit anywhere basically and read it, and then you can have a coffee at the cafe or the hotel lobby. So you can feel that you are under one roof, under the culture center. But even though you're a guest at the hotel, or someone sharing or lending a book. So this is the main entrance, and it's here we place this like most projects, a social staircase. But in this case, it really connects all the different functions, and enhances flow throughout the entire building. And what you can see is the supporting pillars taking down all the forces from the high rise on each end of this staircase. And you can see because here we have to handle quite long spans. So that we could have flexible spaces in the culture center. So we used a combination of steel and timber. Timber taking the pressure and steel taking the tension, but it also gave the culture center a character and a signature, and so that whenever you were inside the culture center, you had these trusses, so that guiding you along. And so it's a quite diverse program in this building, in the culture center part, which is the entire lower parts of the building, and it's basically 5 stories. But then there is some parts is only 2 stories because they're really tall. The ceiling is really high. So it is, and there is 4 already existing operation in this building that moved into this plot. So they were scattered around Skellefteå and had their own identity. So there was also a challenge for them to give up some of their identity to get a new one together with all the other operationals. So there was also a work we had to do so that they could feel at home right from the start. And one part of this project was also for them to move in, they had to give also not just their identity in the building, but also some space. So they got 70% of their space moving in here, but they could use 130% or 140% of the space, of the common space inside the building, which is quite unique, especially. So we designed the building so that everything, all these operations, they could work alone, but more importantly, they can work together and collaborate or expand and be more public and be in the center of the city. So it's the youth theater, Unghästen, the young horse, a museum, Anna Nordlander, an art gallery, and also the city library that we already spoke about. And then we have 6 stages for performing arts, which is not really connected to any of these operations. Then we have theater workshops, we have joint office spaces, and all back of house production areas as well. So it's about 17,000 square meters in total. And but the previous image with the nice image with the social or the culture staircase, this is how it looks in real life. This is during a lunch concert for a youth rock band, and this has really become the living room of this city. And whenever I go here, I meet everyone I ever met in Skellefteå, basically. And here you can see the connection to the library and then up to the great foyer and the stages on the upper level. And also all the exposed timber. So most of the timber here is constructional timber on CLT and glulam. And that's the grammar and the architecture of this building and how we build it. So it's all the way down to staircases, to railings. We're trying to work with this because everything is prefab. We wanted to see to work with the elements so that you could have an understanding how they are assembled, and the enrichment in that hopefully will get an interest in design and construction also. But all these different parts becomes something bigger. So the theater level is the upper ground floor level, basically, where the entrance is towards the train station in the north. And here you could see four of the stages in the building, and they are connected to each other. Like this, so that they could really work together. And then there is a back of house above from that. But basically, you can walk around the building all around here, and there is a lot of different staircases and pathways, so that you can divide this in different ways, so that you can use this building, utilize this building in many different ways. And also you have the exhibition space. So the foyer becomes the lung of the building, basically. So where you can, that's where you can have the from the stage one, for example, if you have a convention, then you have the bank at the outside the foyer. But usually it's used by the people living there as a rehearsal space, for example. And there is also an exhibition at one in the end of it. So it's also part of the everyday life. And it's in this with these pillars of glulam pillars and the canopy of the trusses. Taking down the light, lots of daylight in this building that allows for using it. So, but in the heart of the building, of course, lies the grand auditorium. It's 1,200 seats, and it has partly a retractable seating, so you can be up to 1,500 people here, and it's as much as the people living in Skellefteå, basically. So you can fit it in the entire city in here. And it's full. It's sold out every weekend with new artists coming up to this part of Sweden. So that there's a really it's a wise investment for the city. And also here we wanted to see how far we could push timber into the interior. All the supporting walls and the trusses holding the roof and the ceiling are timber, CLT and glulam. The balconies and the seating is also. Here we manage the producer of CLT to create a slightly rounded CLT board, which was for us it was very easy to draw, but it was very hard for them to make it, and they were proud that so we could have this a bowl-shaped auditorium, basically. So we had to work a lot with this, but all the way down to the acoustic panels are made from solid timber blocks. And this was something also from the beginning. Everyone said, no, we have to have S-marked, or we have to have the proved products when working with acoustics. And we said, no, but we can do tests instead, and then we could work with that. And it turned out really good just to use a simple timber block instead, and much more cheaper as well. There were a number of black boxes in the building. It was hard to take pictures in black boxes, so this had to represent them, so to say. But they also timber boxes and rehearsal stages as well, also in timber. Here we one with daylight facing the north. So it's going to be a dance rehearsal stage, but it turned out so good so that the the local authorities in Skellefteå mostly use it as a representative areas instead. But also the creative spaces as workshops and cultural get-togethers. This is a painting studio, for example. This was also with this exposed timber. So we try to have all the surfaces around the entire culture center to be the same, except for the large stage then. So it is quite simple. Just the exposed timber and the pillars are creating the atmosphere and in the building. And this is the gallery space. And here we had to really fight to have some timber visible, mostly for the program of the of the gallery. But we ended up in the ceiling a little bit of glulam, so that you could still feel that you are in a timber building. And then moving on to the hotel and the tower, which is a hotel, 20 stories. It's 75 meters, but it will shrink about 12 centimeters in 2 years, I think. But the good part is that everything is made from timber, so it will shrink together. 205 hotel rooms, conference center, gym, rooftop spa, and 3 themed restaurants. One on the ground floor, one on the plateau, and one on the top, basically. And here you can see this model we made to an exhibition in London. We were invited for the summer exhibition at the gallery, or the national. I don't remember the name of it. Exactly. Yeah. So it's a section through the yeah. Here you can see how it lands underneath the main entrance, and on the opposite side you have the great auditorium. The hotel plan is quite rational, and this was due to in the beginning there was this hotel magnate. He was involved in the project, and we knew that he was quite harsh, and he wanted to have cheap buildings. So we said, let's do this as rational as possible, but we turned it facing down to with the short side facing down to the river, so that all the hotel room was given a chance to see the river view. So there, even here was no backside, basically. So it's 18 pods stacked on top of each other. I will present a little bit later, in between 2 stabilizing cores instead of 1. And this was something that we took this was the concept we made in the competition phase already. So we were collaborating with a structural engineer, Florian Korse. He's from DIFC from Oslo, so that we could ensure that our solutions was viable, basically, in theory at least. And also, if you have done this in concrete, there would be so much waste of materials, so that we have to redesign the entire building if they would alter it. So it was also something backup for us. So this is the hotel room, and here you can see the exposed CLT in the walls and in the ceiling as well. So this is made from it's a 3D box, basically. And it also allows for this spectacular view overlooking the mist of Skellefteå. But it's like here today, so I think you can. And the highway is also giving new perspective for the people or the visitors in Skellefteå to overlooking their own city, basically, with a public access to the upper floor. Which is a restaurant and a rooftop spa with a lap pool on top of a timber building, which is maybe not the best solution, but it is here. And this came in quite late in the process, but we managed that as well. And through the design process, the building also has grown from the competition phase. It was 16 floors, but then someone wanted to add program, and we added. In the beginning, 16 floor was the top amount of floors you could build in timber, and then the client came and said, we need 2 more floors, and we said, okay, yeah, for us it was no big deal. We could just draw 2 more floors, but the statics said, okay, we can allow for 2 more floors, And then this came in very late. We need another extra floor, or 2 more extra floors again. And then, so we didn't change the design, but I think we could do 1 more floor with this design as well. But then it would be very hard to for the building to stand. So basically, a complex building like this, which is tailor-made for it to suit its purpose, but it's made from details and joints that is mostly already existed, but in much smaller scale. So this has really become a library of solutions that you can apply in every project, basically, both for residential and for offices, for example. So we also we have a lot of concrete as well, but in the foundation and in the ground floor slab and a cellar. Above from that, all of the horizontal load-bearing materials are timber, mostly glulam pillars and CLT. And then to prevent the building or the people in the building to get nauseous and seasickness, we had to add weight on top of the building. So we have 2 floors with concrete slabs, just to reduce the swayiness of the building. They're not there for the construction. They're there to prevent it to sway too much. And if this was because it's rated as a residential rating, since people are going to sleep there. But if this was an office building, we wouldn't have needed the concrete. So that's quite interesting. So timber construction. It went really fast due to the timber, and everything is pre-manufactured in the factory just outside Skellefteå. It took 73 weeks to assemble all the timber. Which is, the contractor says that we saved about a year of construction time doing this. So we could get back the revenue quite easier. And also this was a silent working place. We had no complaints from neighbors. And the carpenters working on the site, they don't want to go back to working with concrete because it was such a nice atmosphere working here, silence, and also much less labor on site. And we only needed 1 crane. In this building, and then I already see 2, but 1 big crane at least. The supplier was Martinsson, which is now bought up, and it's called Holmen. It's a CLT factory and a sawmill just outside of Skellefteå. So we used a locally sourced timber from a radius of about 120 kilometers around the site. So basically, most of the people in Skellefteå, they own a lot of land. So they have been also part of erecting this, been part of the construction material in this building as well. By doing this, we could do a really large element so that we have fewer connections and speeding up the process and the construction. We have the largest element that we produced was 27 times 3 meters. And the heaviest one was about 13 tons. It was 16 times 4 meters times 41 centimeters thick CLT. And they follow, like, working in a factory, they're following safety protocols, safe environments, normal working hours and all that. So there's a lot of beneficial of working in pre-manufactured buildings. But in Sweden, at least, we are quite used in this production. So this was not a big step for us working with timber, as it could be in other countries, for example, where you do everything on site. Yeah, so 73 weeks, 1 year saved, construction time, clean, working, safe, and fuel lifts with the crane. And then, since everything is locally produced and produced in factories just outside, we reduced the amount of transportation with 80% from a normal building, which saved us a huge impact as well for the building. 9,500 cubic meters of CLT, where you can see all the stabilizing shear walls. And we're using the walls around the big stages to take down the shear forces down from the the high-rise, and this was a little bit of the trick, because this is 6 floors tall. So in this direction, it's only 20 minus 6 stories, the high-rise, I would say. But that would also give a little bit of problem, because if you have a joint here and a joint in the different heights here, you get a skew factor. So we have to prevent it from skewing as well with the wind taking the. So it's quite complicated how to measure the acceleration in this building. So that we have 3 different engineers doing calculations, and also we have the University of Luleå also helped out to understand how stiff the building needed to be without breaking. So it's a quite complicated construction. Glue lam for all the pillars and all the beams in the building, basically. And we also used it for trusses, but we had some steel as well. 234 tons of steel, excluding the screws. I think only in the tower we had 500,000 screws holding the brackets that supports the elements. And we also had piles down to bedrock to support the structure of the building as well. So here, this is the drawing and the first module of the hotel room, which was compiled in another factory in the opposite side of Skellefteå. So all the material comes from Martinsson, all the slabs, and they were transported to this factory where another company made the 3D modules. So they with all the interior fittings and the insulation glass as well. So you can see here, it's in each end there is glue lamp pillars, which they connect to the next like this, which they connect the next module basically. And here we also had a problem with the acoustics and the flank transmission of sound that we solved by doing this. There is no basis. So basically, the high-rise don't have floors. They have cavity or insulations instead between the ceiling in one room and the floor in the other one. But the total thickness is 300 millimeters between each rooms, and a little bit thicker in between the ceiling and the walls. I think it's 100, 100, and 120 for the floor plate of each module. And then we will have on top of that, we have a floating floor for improving the sound insulations even further. And then you would just stack them on top of each other. So you could take 2 of these modules on one trolley and drive to the site. So you could do half a floor a day in perfect conditions, which is very fast. I thought you were going to say, woo. Okay. Okay, yeah. So the entire construction we did without any weather protection, except for these parts, because the modules comes with their insulations wrapped around them already. So then we needed weather protections. But others from that, no weather protections at all. Instead, we worked with, we divided the building into lots of sections. So we built it vertically instead. So we did one section quite fast up to the roof, and then the next one. And in that way, we could save a lot of time as well, and we didn't need the weather protection. There's a lot of brooms in this project as well. Lots of snow that needed to be brushed off from the construction. So when the building was erected, we just added the double skin afterwards. We demounted the building with a light. As you can see, I don't know what to call it in English, but it was really very easy to mount the outer layer of the glazing of the building. It was essential for us to work in BIM, and we did so even in the competition. But from there, we worked with Revit as design, both for sustainability measurements. We worked with AR, VR for stakeholder involvement, so that the mayor could see what he was investing in, for example, and everyone was really interested in that. So that was a really good tool to work with, or to visualize everything in. And of course, most importantly, the review and collisions, so that we did all the errors in the 3D models, not on site. So we reduced almost like 98% of all the errors we did virtually instead of in real life. Coordination, dialogue, quantity takeoff, database, and on-site, so that we could see that we did everything correctly. And this building was constructed during COVID, so there was no one allowed to go to this site except the people working there. So it was really good for us also to follow the construction, but based in Stockholm then. Fire safety. So in Sweden, we have fire regulation, which is based, it's performance-based, not material-based. So basically, we need to, the building has to withstand fire in a certain amount of minutes so that people could get out safely. And then you have to calculate that so that they could do so, but it doesn't need to be, they don't care if it's concrete or timber. But we have to prove that it's that you can apply that rule, basically. The hotel tower is R90, 90 minutes to get out safely from the building without the collapse. And in the culture center, or the lower part, it's R60. So we have the entire building is fully sprinkled with a redundant sprinkler system. And this is basically by law needed in a public building anyway. So if we have done this in a concrete, we would have done it the same way with the sprinkler system. And also we did take an over-dimensioned timber. So each timber slab has like 2 centimeters of extra material, so that they could withstand even more fire. So we have a lot of precautions to achieve the fire regulations that we have done. And of course, this is a pilot project, so it's it would be very interesting to see if when you know more about the characters of timber and fire performances, that you can actually save more money instead of doing all these precautions. Yeah, and all the exposed timbers are, it's a fire-retarded paint. But we also use that, so it's a little bit of white pigment as well. So it will be a little bit, because it will darken the timber surface. So it helps, going to help to smooth that out a little bit. High performances envelope with a double skin facade and a 3-layer glazing all over. Working with timber, you get no thermal bridges. So we save a lot of cladding and insulations by only using 40 centimeters thick timber boards. For example, this is what you see. This is the core of the elevator shaft. So we don't have any insulation or anything. It's only the cavity and the outer layer of the double skin. We're working with hybrid ventilation throughout the big foyers. And the building is certified gold with the Swedish Green Building Council, which is the highest level of. And working with this building it was the local energy company wanted this building also to perform as good as the embedded energy, the embedded. Carbon dioxide, but it should also be the operational energy should be as good. So it runs on 100% renewable energy from the local hydropower company. It's the energy system is connected to the city grid through AI, so that they learn how to best optimize this building's energy, but also their neighbors' energy, so that they prevent any of the buildings to get too much energy needs, so that because they're working with peak shaving basically, so that you don't want to use bad energy. You only want to use the renewable energy basically. Yeah. Batteries instead of diesel engines from Northvolt to work with, for example, the sprinkler backup system that you have to test every second week. So we thought that was a stupid idea to have a diesel engine in a timber building. We should have batteries instead. And the environmental impact of this building, and of course our goal was to reduce the emissions as much as possible. Basically what you do that is that you look into the operational energy, the embedded energy from the building materials and how they were produced. And then you balance that with renewable energy, with sequestrations, for example, if you're working with timber, and also with renewable energy outside of the property. And we have done, after this building was built, we did an LCA, or together with the contractor, we did a carbon assessment to see what kind of impact this building have on our planet. And you can see it's quite low, so 200 kilo per CO2. But if you take the carbon sequestrations under consideration, which is minus 326, this becomes a carbon negative building, and together with the solar panels on the roof and ceiling. So the balancing is twice as much as the emissions in this case for the CO2, for the material. And when we also looked into the different materials in the building, you could see that the foundations is 41%, but the concrete is 42% of the entire thing, even though it's only was the foundations that we were using concrete in, and still had that big of an impact. And then you can compare that to the timber and the construction and the structure. So you could see that there's a really low impact of timber in this building. But we also have to work with the other materials as well. The glass is quite high in this, and we didn't focus on trying to find low emission glass, for example, which we could have done if maybe in the next project. But so there is a lot of things that you could tweak to make this building or a building like this even better, basically. So, but it's really good to get an understanding that all the different material counts. And this was a really big investment for this very little city, and it was basically for them to find a new way to become a more attractive region. And by doing this, we also we managed to convince the client to. So if you want to be this brave, you should also to show the way of how to build sustainable. And it's been really taken off. And since the opening of this building, there's been created about 3,000 new jobs in the regions with this Northvolt battery factory moving up to this site. And they're saying that the Culture Centre was one reason of their choosing this location. And Times Magazine, they named Skellefteå as one of the world's greatest places in 2022. So that's a good, I think that's a good mark of how you can, if you dare, you can also succeed. And I will end by showing a little video of how the people inside the Culture Centre also have new ways of using this building. This is a technical space where you're not allowed to go into, but it's still there. So this was for 1 year anniversary that they did this choreographed dance in the technical space in the double skin facade. For everyone was standing in the main square looking up to it. It was super fun. Thank you.
So thank you very much. You missed in between a very clear wow.
Yeah.
And from my side, there is a very loud wow and a very clear wow, because it was a wonderful, inspiring lesson you gave to us. And the topic of our workshop, which you attend tomorrow, fortunately, is how we want to build in the future. And I think this is a really good answer to this question. One answer, but a really good one. And I also thought I have to go to Sweden to see this building. It's very far away, no?
Yeah.
So obviously there are some questions, and I would just leave the microphone to everybody who's feeling to ask something.
And if you don't want to, there is something outside afterwards. Then you can come up to me and be more.
Sorry, work is not finished. So who has a question?
For the modules, did you change the pillars coming up and needing less?
Oh, no, we did not. And that was because it was going to be too much of a hassle to know which one of the modules we're going to stand where. So that was something that we tried to shave the amount of material in the building, but you have to also make it buildable. It's easy to do it in a computer, but then there is going to be carpenters there, and so the variation would be too much of a problem. So we standard everything.
Wood is really cheap in Sweden.
No, no, it's not. But we were on the budget. This building did not cost more than it would have. It would have been in concrete, and we compared this building to a lot of other projects like this being built within the 10 years time in Sweden and in Norway, and this is nothing extravagant. So we saved a lot of gypsum by not having any drywalls at all, basically.
I would be interested to know at which point of the project you came to the idea to put glass as a protecting skin of the timber, because as I learned in our workshop right now, that glass is concerning CO2 emission, not a good material.
No,
so
I
have the impression it's very expensive.
Yeah,
also.
and you have to. Well, you have to take everything under consideration to see the purpose of. In this case, we wanted to expose the timber, and because we knew that this was going to be a showcase of what extents you could build with timber. So for us, we needed to protect the timber anyway, because you have to protect it from weather. And so there was architecture, and there was like an educational thought behind this as well, and that basically that's the reason we choose to have this much glaze as we did. So because we also thought that we're going to balance it with the amount of timber that we had in the building.
Which solution did you take to sleep well when you have to think about all the water that is in the sanitary areas of the hotel rooms?
So
once coming out and running between the modules,
yeah, it's going to be a happy day. No, all the sanatorial parts, we have vertical shafts, and of course they are protected. So there is like a plug-in vertically in this. So we have studied that as well. But of course, there could be. I mean, then you can dry that out. So it's not that because. The walls yeah. We have sensors as well, yes.
Thank you for the awesome presentation. And I'd like to ask if you're concerned about a second life of the building, either reusing the CLT as a material or repurposing the building for a different use.
Yeah, so if they don't want the hotel anymore, you can deassemble it and move it somewhere else, or use the modules to refugees or student housing somewhere else. So everything is just screwed. I mean, it's quite it's a simplified way to say it, but yes, it's made to be deassembled in the end. So we have thought over the cradle to cradle in the design. But then the reality is not. It's harder, more complex than theory.
No more questions? Then work is done. Thank you very much once
you.
again. And yes, we have some wine, we have some food, and talks can go
Continue,
on.
yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.